the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, former town councilman Bob Hillsberger, who passed away. Thank you. Sal, do we have anybody?
Mayor, we'll have two participants. Let's see David Wilson.
Good evening, everyone. Just some comments. I'm going to start with the number 8, the high school fire.
Dave, your address, please.
16 White Swan Drive, New Milford. First and foremost, and I probably don't really need to have to tell this town council or other boards, but I would wholeheartedly support releasing our present roof company from their duties with us. Many of you are in business, so I really don't have to get into it. Even without a business background, I think that, once, well, we won't even go there, but twice, we're done. But we are presented with a huge issue about opening the high school. And I do understand the regulations involved, all the inspections that have to be done. I know we don't have definitive things. Really quickly, how many classrooms do we know are just out of commission? 20, 30, 50?
Dave Belford, who is the contractor, and I know I'm not supposed to report to him, but just quickly, they're assessing.
How about I give you a ballpark figure, between 10 and 50?
There you go.
Okay. All right. One thing, I do have experience teaching in portable classrooms. No, absolutely not. And you'll ask me why. Inclement weather, for starters. Rain, snow, mud, dirt. They're impossible to clean. Your maintenance crews they have to manually bring everything in every day to clean them. It's going to cost you a fortune to do that. The other problem I had, depending upon the age group, no, it doesn't depend on the age group, come to think of it, but I need to use the restroom. Okay, that's a major thing. I know we don't think about these things, but those are really, really issues. The cleaning, seriously, is very, very difficult to maintain in those. You'll have, well, anyway. So I strongly suggest that be taken off the block. Also, 50. That's a lot, but I would take a look at how many classrooms we have that are empty at any given time in the day. I would utilize the auditorium, the lecture hall, the cafeteria, combining study halls, 2, 3, 4 together in the auditorium, things of that nature. Again, it depends on the what you have in terms of can you open or not. I understand that. Another option would be obviously other schools that may have extra space. I'm really not for that because I'd like to keep all our students together. I think that's very, very important. And on another note, if you'll give me some latitude, many of you seen me down in front of the post office on and off collecting money for Ukrainian relief. Many of you here, wow, yeah, many of you here have graciously contributed. We've done very well with that, up to $8,500. The total effort is around $35,000, and the monies have gone to, thus far, the Ukrainian Red Cross, the World Central Kitchen, the Global Empowerment Mission, helps with refugee settlement, which we're very proud of in this town, and also the National Bank of the Ukraine for their military account. So I thank all of you, and if you see me down there again, or anybody for that matter, feel free. Every dollar helps, and we really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time and your indulgence.
Mike Sanella.
Mike Sinella, 111 Willow Springs. 2 agenda items I'd like to get to tonight. We'll see if I have time for the second one. First one is agenda item number 8, the Milford High School roof fire. I'll try to be brief on this topic, and the only reason I'm speaking here tonight is because Mayor Bass may not be as candid as he was at last Thursday night's Municipal Building Committee meeting, now that he's had some time to sleep over and think about the events that night. In brief, what the contractor was willing to admit to on the public record alone, which, and I hope Attorney DeBella is listening, includes fault in this case, should leave everyone in this room jaw-dropped, as the entire audience was last Thursday night. It's the reason Mayor Bass was as candid as he was Thursday night. In the audio clip, I'm sure everyone's heard at this point. And to everyone who watched the show last night, first things first, thanks everyone who watched. Where we went over everything in great detail, this will be a bit redundant, so I'll just briefly go over the highlights for those who missed out. For the record, everything I'm about to say was either admitted to by the roofing contractor, confirmed by the contractor, or agreed with by the contractor at last Thursday night's meeting. Number 1, the contractor was specifically told not to use the hot applied flashing method, which includes the use of torches after the first fire they caused. 2, the original plans and specs never mentioned the hot applied method and only included cold applied materials. 3, the only reason the contractor, at their request, was given permission in the winter to use the hot applied method was because winter temperatures fell below what the manufacturer recommended for the cold applied material. For those who couldn't tell, it's July. Number 4, the contractor admitted and the manufacturer confirmed there is no advantage to using the hot applied method. Number 5, the contractor admitted and the manufacturer confirmed cold applied materials were, quote, readily available. 6, the crew applying the hot applied flashing wasn't some rookie crew. You couldn't just chalk this up to a rookie mistake. No, but it was a 2-man operation where one had 22 years experience and the other 12. 7, there was a very specific and clearly and explicitly laid out order of operations sternly given to the contractor in the event of another fire, which was to call 911 immediately and to immediately call the owner of the company next. Number 8, there were multiple phone calls made by the contractor before Principal Manka, of all people, wound up calling 911, and apparently no one at the roofing company called 911, and it was clear it was some time before the owner was called. Finally, number 9, the fire had probably been smoldering for hours before another crew noticed the smoke. This isn't necessarily an implication of negligence, but it does mean the hot applied method comes with the known risk of a fire going unnoticed and smoldering for hours, God forbid into the night when nobody's there up on the roof of the building to notice the fire. To be clear as well, this fire was much worse than the previous one. The last fire caused roughly $1.5 million in damage. The people I've spoken to who have been inside are guessing this is looking like $10 million or more. I'm sure Mayor Bass can fill everyone in. I'm sure Mayor Bass will fill everyone in on the extent of the damage and how remediation is progressing. But like he said on Thursday night, this is extremely serious. And thank God school wasn't in full session with 1,300 kids in attendance, because we probably wouldn't just be talking about property damage, and I'll leave it at that. I'm also sure I'm missing some other tidbits the mayor can fill everyone in on to explain just how bad this is. Like Mayor Bass said at last Thursday's meeting, this isn't just a screw up, this is an F up, and of colossal proportions, and not the first one this contractor made on this project. So the second agenda item I'd like to get to is agenda item number 10. I hope you guys have read Connecticut General Statutes section 7-148 on agenda item number 10. For those of you who are familiar with the basics of the laws of demand, this will come as no surprise to anyone, but if this commission actually performs their duties and their charges to the letter of the law, this could be the single most destructive commission ever brought forth before this committee, before this town. And you guys know how I don't like to complain without a solution, so we are actually required by law, as 7-148, I think it's D is one that we actually qualify under, to establish the commission. I would ask Attorney DeBella if we're required to populate the commission. So I'll probably have to do a presentation at some point, because I don't have time now, on what the law of demand is and why price fixing is one of the worst things you can do to an economy. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
No more public participation.
Thanks, Sal. Katie?
Okay, Mayor. We'll move to item number 3, which is the consent agenda. And I have 2 corrections. These are clerical corrections. I'll tell you ahead of time. Item number C for the police department donations. If you just will add a $1,590 donation to that list from the U.S. Deputy Sheriff's Association to be used for training. And on the appointments and reappointments on the Arts Commission, the end date for both of the people that we voted on, we did these last week? Oh, no, these are 2 new people. You have to change that. It says November 30th on your agenda. It should be January 31st, 2024 for Rachel McCord, and January 31st, 2026 for Terrence Sugas. So I'd like to move to accept consent agenda items 3A, B, C, as noted, with the addition of that 1 item for the Sheriff's Department.
I have a second.
Second.
Second by Sal. Any discussion?
I just want to say for the police department, they like to say that $500 of this came as a donation from the American Legion, $500 from the VFW, $50 from monetary from Celebrating Veterans Day, it's a group, $74 from an anonymous person for community policing events.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Did we have a phone? No?
I will abstain. I was on the phone. I couldn't
Okay.
really hear.
Thank you.
Item 4, I'd like to move that we accept the following appointments to the Arts Commission. Rachel McCord, as I just said, July 11th, 2022 to January 31st, 2024. And Terrence Sugas, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right, January 7/11/22 to January 31st, 2026.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, I want to review quickly the procedure for bringing people to the council to put on committees. So, as was told to me before, it's usually noticed on the website that there are positions available, and people come forward or are suggested, and then they come to you for an interview. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Is there anyone else ever in on any of these interviews usually, or is this just your interview?
It's the appointment by the mayor.
It's an appointment by the mayor? Okay. So, I would like to suggest that in the not-too-distant future, we talk about other ways that we could possibly be interviewing candidates for boards and commissions, specific to what just happened at the high school with the municipal building project. I think that we might need to do more to vet the participants on committees who have to make such important decisions for our town. And that,
Well-
I don't know what the process is, but I feel that it is important that possibly representatives from both political parties and yourself interview people for committees, because it's very important that we have the right people making these important decisions.
Thank you. We have a motion.
I just want to say, putting these 2 things together at this point in time I don't think is appropriate. I'll just say that.
It's understanding the process. I agree with you, but it's understanding the
It's
process.
inappropriate to even bring it up right now.
It's the same process for all the committees, though.
We have a motion and we have first and a
And there
second.
used to be,
Any-
just for one further question, there used to be more of a process where you would check with the, on appointments of the other party, the 2 that are supposed to be
Hillary,
minority
that's a-
representation.
That's a great question.
So it used to be protocol that the mayor would check with the other party's
Absolutely.
DTC
And-
and get their nominations.
And your former,
Right, I'm just saying
chairman,
tit for
right?
tat doesn't make
it's not tit
people
for tat, but
happy.
your former chairman, right,
Right.
as we talked about before, really said some pretty outrageous things to more than half of the population here. And then what I said was, I'm not going to, unless we get an apology from the DTC, I'm not going to listen to what you guys are going to bring forward, because you're not representative of over 50% of the New Milford residents by the nonsense that was put forward at the last election.
So you're punishing the Democrats for.
I'm not punishing anybody.
For,
If
for,
you-
for the
if
campaign.
you,
Please,
Hillary,
audience.
Hillary, if you want to state as the chairman of the Democrat
Yeah.
Town Committee,
Yes.
that you're not, that you and your party aren't going to do that, then we can have a conversation.
First of all, we're allowed to do whatever we want, as is your party. I mean, there's no, but let's just get back to that at some point. I think that's you know, a fair goal, right? To say.
I think it's definitely a fair goal.
If in the minority representation, I would look to the Republican town committee and say, who do you put forward for these two positions? You know, I think, let's just get back to civility. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item 5, update from Dr. Levin.
And Dr. Levin, we sent to the council.
Right.
He
Traveling.
had to travel.
Item 6, Houstonic Valley Health District update. Do you have that?
Lisa is unavailable tonight, so I'm going to ask her to send an email to the council for an update on the district itself.
Okay.
And I'll also be talking on the mayor's comments of vaccine clinics and also the COVID clinics.
Okay, next item, mayor's
Okay.
comments.
Thank you, everybody. So I'll be as brief as I can. So first, as we do each and every council meeting, we talk about COVID first. And the numbers, and these are in totality, not how many people currently have COVID. This is how the state does it. State of Connecticut is at 838,159. Litchfield County is at 35,723, which is up 66 from Friday. New Milford is at 5,325, which is up 11 from Friday. Our vaccine statistics from July 7th, which is a 7 to 10 day look back. First doses are at 22,664, which is 84.55%. Fully vaccinated is at 20,979, which is 78.27%. You can also get vaccinated at our clinic at Pettibone. And the dates that they have so far, on the 27th of July, starting at 4:30, is vaccinations for those 12 years and older. On 8/10, from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. is for those the age 5 to 11 years old. On 8/27, from 3 to 4:30 is 12 plus years old. Also, our rapid PCR testing is at Pettibone, Mondays from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And just as a caveat to those watching and those in the audience, as the state and federal government have stopped the reimbursements of the vaccine and of the COVID testing clinics, you may have a copay from your insurance. So just so that everyone is aware, you need to check with your provider. Then moving on to the New Milford High School fire, which we'll have Jack and Tim kind of give us an update. A couple of things. First, in speaking with Attorney DeBella, and to make sure that we have a fast process, as we spoke with our Board of Ed partners today on a call, is I declared a declaration of local disaster emergency for the town of New Milford, Connecticut. This is pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Chapter 517, and this will be on the website tomorrow morning, and to read to the council. Whereas on Tuesday, July 5th, 2022, a fire occurred in the New Milford Town High School building requiring multiple emergency response teams and resulting in significant and extensive fire, smoke, and water damage. And whereas the school building will not be fully inhabitable for educational and school activities and classes for an indefinite period of time. And whereas numerous issues relating to the fire loss and logistical extingencies that arise and will likely require immediate or rapid action, including without limitation, filing, perfecting insurance claims, arranging for contractor termination and intervention, leasing or purchasing and emplacing temporary classroom or other structures, and seeking available grants and financing vehicles. And whereas it is critically important to the town, through its mayor, to have all reasonably necessarily authority to efficiently and effectively allow town boards and agencies to attend to ameliorating the effect of the fire loss and to provide necessary temporary classrooms and structures until the high school building is fully habitable for all educational and school-related purposes. Now, therefore, it is hereby declared pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 28-1, Paragraph 8, and the New Milford Charter, Section 502, that the town is in a state of a local disaster emergency as a result of the damage caused by the New Milford High School fire of July 5th, 2022. And it is further proclaimed and ordered that during the existence of said state emergency and local civil preparedness emergency, I, Pete Bass, as the town of New Milford's Chief Executive Officer, Chief Administrative Officer, shall assume and exercise the powers, functions, and duties prescribed and provided by law, including but not limited to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 28-8A and 28-1A, New Milford Charter Sections 808D, 501, and 502, including the power and authority to temporarily suspend the effect of regulations of other municipal agencies, together with and all rights and authorities provided under the town's Code of Ordinances, and may take such action as necessary to protect the public health and mitigate this emergency consistent with pertinent constitutional, statutory, regulatory, charter, and ordinance provisions. And it is further proclaimed and ordered that the state of emergency shall remain in effect until terminated by further order. And it is further proclaimed and ordered that this order shall be available for review and inspection in the office of the town clerk of the town of New Milford during regular business hours, and shall be posted at both the town's clerk office, on the town's website, and a copy sent to the State Commissioner of Emergency Services and Public Protection.
Is that a copy I can have?
Yep. Randy, could you let the council know that this does meet all of the ramifications that is said?
Certainly. This is not uncharted waters now. We've done this before. This is consistent with the statutory authority conferred by our legislature and has been used before to effect. This allows the process to be streamlined, such as with zoning and things of that nature, so whatever structures that are temporary that are needed can be done. You're going to have to take any action that needs to be taken vis-a-vis the contractor can be taken summarily now, based upon the executive order, and other insurance matters that will have to be dealt with, I can deal with directly with the mayor instead of having to come here on a as needed and immediate basis. That's what that's for, but it's lawful.
Thank you, Randy. Continuing on with the update for the high school. Today, I had a meeting with the Board of Ed Chair, a meeting with Superintendent DeCorpo, had Brian McCauley, who is the Board of Ed Facilities Chairman, Matt Cunningham, who is the Facilities Director, Anthony, who's the Finance, and we're going to continue our talks on how we're going to do this together. Everyone needs to pull together to make this work, to make it so that we can get the kids back into the high school. And we're going to continue to do that. An update also, we have contracted Balfour, who is, I'm sure Jack will give this update in a minute, and Tim. They're the ones that are doing the restoration work. And they've been going pretty much nonstop since really the night of the fire. When we were in there looking at it, they were already there kind of assessing it. So some of the stuff that they've done, first and foremost, to make sure that summer school was up and running, we needed to make sure we had air conditioners in Northville. So Belfour was able to have those install those air conditioners so that we were able to have summer school start, I believe, today, right, Wendy? Yes. Okay. Some of the things that they've also done so far, very quickly, all contents, horizontal surfaces, and floors were cleaned in the cafeteria, and that's to make space and prepare for storage of clean contents in the affected areas. All student desks from the third and second floor corridors were cleaned, stored, and covered in plastic within the cafeteria. The suspending seal tie removal began, and I believe they've completed that, right, Jack? Yep. Okay. All drying equipment has remained and running and monitored throughout the day, and Jack will talk a little bit more about that. The exterior glass cleanup was completed on the rear of the building by the main entrance. Once all levels are completed, obviously we're going to be looking at transitioning the classrooms that were affected with the same processes for cleaning and storing as were done within the halls. Also, this coming week, some of the other things that they will be doing is continuing on with looking at the continued drying of not only the walls, but also the floor itself, which is going to have some significant damage to it. And they're going to be reassessing it to Jack and also to Matt from the facilities team, and we'll be looking more on that. They're also working with our insurance carrier, which as we know is Kerma, as well as the contractors, roof contractors insurance carrier, on the scope and project costs for that as well. They also began relocating some of the other ceiling tiles that have speakers, exit signs, and cameras as well. Fuss and O'Neill has visited the site, correct, Jack?
Yep.
And they're going to evaluate the air quality. Next, and then Jack will give us more of an update when we continue on with the agenda item. Speaking of infrastructure, we continue with our road program, and that's in its 5th year. And with the road program itself, so far we've completed the east end of Hine Road that's been reclaimed. Hine Road, the upper portion has been reclaimed and paved. Drainage work completed was Colonial Ridge, Squash Hollow, Twin Ridge, Mine Hill, Brentwood and Charter, and Bonnie View. Drainage work in process is Chapin Road. Construction work that's in progress now is Squash Hollow, Elena, Twin Ridge, Bonnie View, Lane 2. Work scheduled from now until the 8th, Squash Hollow, Bonnie View, and Twin Ridge as well. Continue on with some of the bridge work that we're looking at. Mud Pond Road, Bridge has been completed. Same with Tamarack Road. We've got Gaylord Bridge that we're continuing to work on, and we'll have an update for the council for Chenersky Bridge at our next town council meeting. The library continues to move forward with the process. So again, we thought we would be able to have it open in the end of June. Unfortunately, with material shortages, we're now looking, as I've told the council before, into August to have that fully completed. And I'll be updating the council more on that project as we continue to move forward with that. I want to congratulate our New Milford 10U Chaos softball team, who are the Babe Ruth New England Regional Champions. Did a great job. I believe they're like 32 or 33-1. And outstanding job to them. Also want to congratulate Griffin Bush, Ian Kavanaugh, and their families, Lou and Sharon, and Andrew and Fiona, for the Eagle Scouts. It's great to see we have Eagle Scouts again. It's great. New Milford, I think we've had about 6 now in the last month and a half. So that's pretty amazing. Also want to kind of sidebar for a second, and the United Way is going to its back to school backpack program again. And Katie, if you could talk a little bit about that and the importance of that.
Sure.
As we're getting now moving into a new school year.
Right. It's the 31st year for the United Way of Western Connecticut holding the back-to-school program. And what it entails is children from families that are struggling and their budgets don't allow for them to really have any extra money. They will receive a book bag filled with homework supplies, folders, pencils, pens, crayons, colored pencils, and a couple of gift cards for clothing. Last year we also had food, but this year it's going to just be for the department store. And we hand them out about the middle of August. And last year we had 260. We should hopefully be around that this year. It all depends on donors, and that's why I'm bringing this up, everybody out there, is because I'd like very much to let you know that we could use your help by supplying the supplies just for one child, or if you'd like to go and buy a dozen boxes of pens or pencils or a box of pocket folders, anything like that is wonderful. And also, of course, monetary donations or gift card donations, particularly to Walmart. That's where most of the families can get a great deal, and the kids need shoes and things. And I always like to say that we remember the first day of school, I think, always. It's such a big thing in our lives, and some children don't enjoy it as much when they are the kids with the hand-me-downs and the old backpack. So it's not a lot, but I offer out that just call me. You can reach me by phone or by email. I'm on the town website. I'm on the United Way of Western Connecticut. My office is on Bank Street. Call me if you're interested in helping, and every little thing helps. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Katie. Staying on, I want to thank Mark Macon and Lizbeth Lent, as Sullivan Farms is going to start New Ag in the Next Age at Sullivan Farm Forums. So the first one is going to be August 4th from 7 p.m. It's Sustainable Ag 101. So Whitney Freeman from Henny Penny Farms, Kip Kohlenstein from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, John Halfinger from Halfinger Farms, and Greg Bungie from the Connecticut Experimental Station. This is going to be a presentation about new technologies centering on water conservation, crop rotation, cover crops, animal integration, no-till, silviculture, and organic practices. On August 18th from 7 p.m. is going to be a financial panel. Sarah Foreigner of the Connecticut U.S. Department of Agriculture, Katie Pruss from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, Jamie Smith from the Connecticut Department of Agriculture, Chris Langton from the Farm Credit East, Rebecca Eddy from the Connecticut Department of Agriculture. And this is an opportunity to learn of many of the grant and funding sources available to local farmers, as well as investment opportunities. On September 1st at 7 p.m., Pest and Disease Management, Suresh Gamari from Yukon Extension, Alternatives to Traditional Pest and Disease Control, Considering Climate Change Implications. On September 15th from 7 p.m., Tillage, Pros and Cons, Matt Freud from the Freud Family Farm, and Paul Bucala from Fort Hill Farm, an evaluation of tillage methods and their benefits. October 6th at 7 p.m. is Animal Integration and Sylvie Permaculture. Cynthia Rabinowitz, New Conservation. Joe Emmenheiser is from Yukon Extension. Kelly Babin is from Howling Flats Farm. A presentation of the integration of wildlife and vegetable cultivation along with utilization of forests and for cultivation. And again, if you're interested or have any questions or would like to put your name in to register for these classes, you can do so at 860-605-4043. And Elizabeth Lent is the one that's going to be spearheading that.
Is that
so thank you to
town
Yep.
site anywhere?
Absolutely.
Website? Good.
Lastly, some quick things. Social services, they're looking for volunteers for the food bank. Most opportunities are on Thursdays during distribution times, as we have our social services director, Ivana, here as well. And if you have if you'd like to join that team, applications can be downloaded on the New Milford Social Services website, or you can stop and pick one up and introduce yourself. And as also high school students can be involved in that as well. And also with social services, registration is open for one more week, but space is limited for school-age children in kindergarten, 12th grade, and that's back to school registration, as Katie was talking about. And proof of income for this program will be required. Family of 4, the limit is $93,815, correct, Ivana? And lastly, real quick, for this month of July, we still have some events coming up. Here we have, as we all know, the farmers market on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And we have music on the bandstand for that as well. Also on the 21st will be the Rock the Block concert, which will be Nashville Drive. On the 16th at 8 p.m. at the Mariel Center, Allie Ryderson Jazz Quartet and Lorraine Ryan Art Exhibit that's opening. On the 22nd and 23rd is Christmas in July, which are sidewalk sales and holiday games and activities for kids on the green. That starts at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the downtown stores will have various sales. So it's a great time to come down. And I heard we're going to have a special guest that will come down and pay a visit. So that'll be great. Yeah. July 29th and 31st, all-day event at Candlelight Farms, which is the Colonial Concourse Elegance Weekend Car Show event. So there's going to be like Porsches and all these exotic cars will be there as well, with music and food. So it's a great time. That will be all-day events on the 29th through the 31st. On July 30th, starting at 8 a.m., Parks and Rec is going to do their 5K and 8-mile road race. On July 30th, the Mariel Center is the Rob Brenton concert. On the 31st, at Pettibone Community Center, Don Clady is having his car show muscle cars and motorcycles there as well. And then on the 6th of August, the Art Walk, which includes Focus on the Arts and a chalk walk as well. And also on the 6th will be the first part of the Edwin Kincaid concert series. Thank you to the Commission on the Arts. Will be the 102nd Army Band. They'll be kicking
What
it
day is
off. That's going to be on August 6th, 7:30 p.m. on the Green. And that's what I got.
Easy. Well,
Thank you, Katie.
thanks a lot. Item 8, we'll have an update on the high school roof fire.
I'd like to invite up Jack Healy, as we know, our DPW director. We also have Tim Clark, who sits on the Municipal Building Committee. And Jack, before we start, we had a kind of a question posing on certain commissions that we have here. So Jack, experience with the Municipal Building Committee, how many years would you say the commission has an experience in building?
Over 100, easily. So, yeah, you have some very high-quality people who own their own companies who do this for a living, so, yeah, I'd say it's easily over 100.
Thank you, Jack. Jack, can you kind of give an update to the town council and those in the audience and those watching on where we are as far as the high school project?
Well, the mayor hit on a lot of the high points, so I'm going to try to fill in some of the blanks for you. There's been I wanted to say, I usually don't use a lot of adjectives, but I'm going to say an enormous amount of work that's been done since last Tuesday. And first, I'd like to, there's a couple things I want to make sure I say before we start. One is I want to thank Matt Cunningham and your staff. They have been outstanding. And anytime I contact Matt, Nestor, or anybody else, they bend over backwards to help us. I mean, last Friday, we wanted to stay until 6 or 7 o'clock and make sure we get those classrooms open in Northville. And I give them credit. They were right there with us, looking at the windows and seeing what we needed to be done. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. The second thing is, and Tim's here, I don't want to give him a swollen head, but he's been great. Tim's been like my sidekick. He's been next to us every day. We exchange emails and thoughts on this. He's been there. The Municipal Building Committee has been very supportive of this process. So obviously the mayor and everybody else has, but these two groups have just been really helpful, along with the Board of Ed. This is a major snafu. Just going to state it that way. That being said, we unfortunately learned from our last one, so we knew a little bit about the process. So Belfour was on site that night, and I challenged them to get me a work plan. And so 10:30, the night of the fire, we had a work plan, and we started the very next day. Belfour has. I also contacted Kerma. Kerma was very good also. We have a person who's our representative, Brian Carabetta. He's been on the phone and email ever since we started this process. They issued us a claim number right away, and they authorized Belfour to start work that next morning. That's key. Belfour has been there. They have gone through the entire building, and this is a very meticulous process. I mean, they're going through and they're cleaning every room. They're cleaning desks. I mean, if you go there right now, the entire cafeteria is full with the desks, the students' desks. Each one has been cleaned and they're covered with plastic, and that's only a part of them. We are now going to have to. We've run out of space, so we are now going to start moving the remainder of those desks to Stratford, to a warehouse that is owned by Myers. I used the Myers when I was in the industry. They're a great company. They move a lot of things very fast, very rapidly. They've cleaned the floors. They've activated electrical panels where we feel comfortable in having them activated. They've got the first and second floor back up and running electrically. That means they've checked every circuit on that floor. And where they need to, they meg it out to make sure that it's safe. They are working toward the third floor. So if you go by now, you see lights on outside and lights in the building, which is a big step. We are also currently working on the emergency panel, the sprinkler systems, electrical circuitry, elevators. We've got one elevator up, and it sounds like a small thing, but we got one elevator up and running, and that's a good thing. And we've got IT working on making sure the infrastructure of the IT is up and running. Again, that's a collaborative thing between the town and the Board of Ed. The other elevator, we've had to call in a company to come in and decontaminate the pit. During the fire, the pit got filled with water and soot and whatever from the fire. I've contacted a person I know, Debbie is gonna come in, and they're gonna clean that pit tomorrow or the next day. And then we can have that one also up and running. The building official and fire marshal have been on site. The fire marshal has been going through and doing inspections. Today, Kerma had a fire inspector go with him to follow his steps and, act as a second set of eyes. So he is doing his inspections, and he's also doing his investigation, and will, provide that report to the mayor when it's ready. We worked with the Board of Ed to relocate programs from the school. I think we were pretty successful getting them out and able to get those children up and running so that they're having a proper summer program. Silver Petroselli is the architect who is working on the roof. I have also engaged them to help us with, as far as the design of the retrofit. They also brought in Michael Horton Associates to do structural analysis of the area where the roof is. Fortunately, the structural steel in that area is in good condition. The roof deck itself needs to be replaced. There's a couple pieces of support members, which are small pieces that have warped 3 inches. We'll take those out and replace those also. So beside that, they are cleaning. They've got air filters and dehumidifiers going. They've been going since the day after the fire. The building, if you go in now, and if you've gone in at night and go in now, it's night and day. Much of the area is, you can feel it's drier. There's only a couple places now that we feel there's still a little bit of moisture. Currently, Balfour is conducting a moisture assessment of all the walls. We're checking to see whether or not there's moisture in the walls, and that will help us determine what the extent of the retrofit will be. That gets to be very important because I've heard a couple of discussions about when will the students go back. I wish I had a nice firm date for you. I don't have that right now. I can tell you that the classes several of these classes will not be ready. They're just not going to be ready by fall. What we are doing is we have reached out to Will Scott, is the name of the company. They have a large supply of portable classrooms. I want to assure you these portable classrooms are very well designed and put together. Each classroom is about 730 to 740 square feet. They come in modules. The modules have anywhere from 6, 8, or 10 classrooms per module. They come equipped with men and women's bathrooms and a cleaning closet. They come with they have a air conditioner and heat pump system for temperature and climate control. We've met with the building official and with the fire marshal last week with their representative. Right now, what we're doing is going back and forth on the design. Initially, we were saying, we'll take 20 classrooms. I upped that today to 50. And I may be high, but I'd rather start high and work my way down than start low and work my way up. I've asked them to look at modules of 8 classrooms per unit. That way it gives the school flexibility. One of my thoughts is as we clear areas, if we get 8 classrooms cleared, we can move the kids back into the school, take that module and send it back to Will Scott. They'll be located such they'll be near the sanitary sewer, which I found important because water and electricity I can pump or directly wire. I need a place to put the sewer, so we're going to put these near the sanitary sewer line, so they'll go there. So we're working on that design right now. I am meeting with Balfour because Balfour doesn't only do the remediation; they do the construction. So by Friday, what I want to know is if there's a set of classrooms, and let's say 8 classrooms in an area that need to be totally removed, all the wall board taken down, ceiling taken down, insulation, everything. How long does it take you to strip the classrooms and then put them back together? Is it 1, 2, or 3 days? That will help determine how many classrooms we need and how long it'll take us. So we're working on that, and we're going to have a rough estimate by Friday. We're working on it right now. Fuss and O'Neill is coming up tomorrow. We're going to start clearance. I actually want to start clearance sampling tomorrow. I think there's areas in the school that are perfectly fine, that we can do a clearance sample on those tomorrow. I'm particularly worried about the 2 ends. You got the auditorium and the gymnasium. We want to make sure we get the air conditioning on there in the gymnasium. It's going to become extremely humid. That's a raised floor. Those types of floors warp relatively easy, so I want to get the air conditioning on. It'll protect that floor. Both that area and the Music area, we've all walked many times, and Tim's been with us. I think that those will probably clear our first time through. And if they do, then we can turn those systems on and start controlling the air in those areas. We are also replacing all of the remainder filters in the HVAC system. We're going to take out the existing ones. We're going to backfill with a pleated filter married with a carbon filter, get the organics out of the air and all the dust particles. And we'll order multiple layers of those so that we can turn it on when we start remediation. And then we'll take those out during construction. We'll have a second set. We're done with construction. We'll put in the final set for re-entry by the students. I could go on. I think that hits the high points. I don't know, Tim, do you have anything?
Speaking of a high point, Jack is, inflate your head now.
And
But
Tim,
Jack's,
for the council that may not know who you are,
sure.
can
Tim
you
Clark.
can you kind of give a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the business for about 28 years, specialized in just private commercial construction as construction managers. So this is kind of near and dear to home, especially after we had this thing in December. The committee, municipal building committee that we have, I encourage you, go back, look at all the minutes, and you'll be happy with the results and the dialogue that we have. It's healthy dialogue, and it's everybody that really puts in a lot of hard work. This is two Thursdays a month that we've been meeting for about 2.5 years. This committee put together, and with the assistance of Dean Petroselli, a program that you've realized, I forget what the number is, 43% savings or whatever on that roof there, to be able to get a roof that's proper for that building, and that roof will translate to something that's not 19 years and you have to replace it 50, 70 years, whatever it may be, but that's the proper roof. In addition to that, this building received a nice new hat on it too, which is another roof that will last a very long time. So the town's moving in a really nice direction. Means and methods are being respected to what should be proper to a New England town, and as you were coming up 7 and you take a look at that, you can kind of see the difference between the roof shingles and the standing seam. Unfortunately, last Tuesday, as I came up 7, I noticed some smoke there, and I'm rarely up in this area. My brother's in town, so I happened to come up and see him, so I didn't get a call or anything. I saw the smoke and knew kind of what we're up against again. Very clear, the bullet points that were noted at the beginning of this meeting, 1 to 9 are extremely accurate, and they were stripped down to really what we're up against right now. And it was no surprise on Thursday night when the contractor was asked those questions that we have some concerns, and it was repeatedly voiced from that committee that decisions were made without proper approvals moving forward. So that'll get worked out. It's going to be however long the legal stuff takes, but right now, what I saw was it was something that was avoidable. What wasn't avoidable was the community, and the community came together because they had to. And I even saw a superintendent and a principal talking and working together that day. I see Jack there, dropped everything, whatever you had going on was shelved. The team of facilities, those guys just said, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and figure it out. This sucks. I can't believe we got to deal with this shit again. I can't believe, but they just jumped in. They don't care. They're like, whatever we got to do. What do we got to do to get there? That's what the community's about. What's kind of being ignored are the volunteer firemen and everybody that went on to 4.5 stories. They're not used to fighting fires like that at all. To see the operation that they did, 6 of them inhalation, whatever, I'm sure they're recuperating now, but there was 2 of them that slid down the roof onto a flat area. If they were on the other side of that ridge, they would have slid down the roof and you would have dropped 4 stories onto a sidewalk. That's the reality of what went down last week. It wasn't anything other than standing there from 1:30 to 5 o'clock watching water dump constantly into the building. So what you have there is, fortunately, in a basement, fortunately your mechanicals weren't down in the lower level. The firemen really did a good job getting the water out of there, but now you're left with this wicked, wicked smoke, just tainted building. The encouraging thing is Balfour, like we said, 10:30 on Tuesday night, here's our plan, we're staying there 8 o'clock in the morning, here's 2 dumpsters, 8:15, here's the 50 people, 8:30, you've got the generator pulling in, it's like clockwork. So if there's any hope to get as many classrooms and students back in there, I believe this was really, unfortunately, because of our first incident, that was the call that's going to make this happen. I think a concern about the temporary classrooms, you don't want those there all the time. As soon as you can start getting rid of some of them, if that's the case and you guys do go with that plan, as soon as rooms are ready, boom, get those out of there. So, but I think those are much different than the normal typical classrooms that people have seen in the past, especially once I heard there's bathrooms, there's corridors, there's exits, HVAC, air conditioning. So that's a definite concern. Mud and stuff like that, it'll be designed in a way so you're going off sidewalks and they'll maintain it. But I do agree, it's another level of cleaning that the town will have to take on. Aside from that, the committee's going to have to make a recommendation this week. And after this meeting, and I know there's a meeting tomorrow night, we've been assembling as much possible information as we can. We've solicited many documents that will help assisting with our recommendation on Wednesday. So whether we can have a recommendation at that point, that's yet to be determined. Once we meet as a group and go over all the items, it's kind of what we're narrowing towards. So I do want to highlight, obviously, the firefighters, and then 2, the town. That's what makes this town special. And there's 2 stories. One is, I don't know who the guy is, but he looked like he was about 90 years old, rolling up the hoses after the fire. And that just says what this is about. The other thing is, there was a kid I coached in baseball. Squires was his last name, and his dad, he was a chief or something like that. So he was standing there, and I said, hey, how's Richard doing? And he says, as I was at the top of the stairs, a fireman went by, and I turned around, and I saw the back of his jacket, and it said Squires. And he said, that's where my son is. He was fighting the fire with me up there. So that's what this town's about. And, you know, I hear about this side, that side. I really don't care about that. I care about kind of what everybody's participating. So whether it's Democrat, Republican, whatever. We have a municipal building committee. Go look at the minutes, educate yourself before you ask who's what and what they're doing. I really don't care about that stuff. So what we have is kind of humanity kicking in now, and that's what I can add to it. So Jack's been awesome, great mayor, every moment. And if any of you believe that people kind of walked away from it at 5:30 or whatever it is, it's been nothing but emails, phone calls, texts, all day, all night from each and everybody from your side. Everybody's chiming in, but that's the information that, you know, we're pleased with, because we came back after a holiday and got hit with this when most people had the day off, so everybody's pretty jammed up, 3-day week, and get back to work, and you're getting ready for the next school year. This is not a great situation. However, it's changed a ton in the past 6 days. So be happy with the community that we have here, because we're pretty lucky. So any questions from anybody here on behalf?
A few for Jack.
Before that, Wendy, did you want to say anything as chairman of the Board of Ed?
I've never met you personally, Ken,
Yes.
but we're all sitting here nodding our heads, saying, wow, you're spot on.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
what it is. Thank you.
were-
Yep.
You know, it really doesn't matter what side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our kids don't care what letter's behind your name, what party you serve on. They want to go back to school
That was
safely.
I agree.
And we're gonna try and make that happen. But all the emails, all the phone calls, hundreds around the clock, 3:30 in the morning, some of them 4. I'm like, really? So I want to thank you.
Yes.
We don't have a solution because we don't have all the information. And I guess I would hope the way that we pursue this is right now not being a finger-pointing situation, but a fact-finding situation. Because we got to get these kids back in school. And we are getting numerous outpour from the community that, you know, do what you can, whatever you can do. We're hearing that everywhere we go. There's no guarantees. It may not be possible. You know, the damage is severe. It's very, very serious.
Yes. I,
you know, we'll welcome all your opinions, and I appreciate you saying that about some of the portables. We don't know, but we have to try, because a missed opportunity is a missed opportunity. It's a semester.
I think,
So, you know, we have to
based
keep
on-
going.
Yeah, based on tomorrow, once we get that testing, that's gonna answer a lot. Again, the feel of the building's much different, and then once those tests come back, end of the week, the other thing that you have going for you with Balfour is they're I've never dealt with them. I did see them on Undercover Boss years ago, and I always remembered their name. So every time you see Katrina, you see a different thing. You see this Balfour truck there, right? So that's them. They're, and what they do have is they have accounts and resources at an international level to get the materials that we need to get it open. So you said the library over there isn't open for materials or whatever it may be. These materials of construction, you're going to be dealing with ceiling tiles, you know, floor tile, all that type of drywall. That they can get their hands on that type of stuff. You're gonna have some casework and different things that are gonna take a lot of time to rebuild. You deal with that, but initially, again, the buying power of them, the manpower that they have, it's sitting in the right spot to get as many of those classrooms back open. By the end of the week, into next week, I think it'll become a lot more clear, yeah.
So we have a board meeting tomorrow night. We anticipate many people coming out, I could be wrong, just to be heard, and they should be, and we as elected officials should hear them. So I welcome you to come.
And Wendy, for those that are maybe watching or here in the audience or here on the council, so the meeting tomorrow night is at what time?
At 6:30.
And
It is at
school?
Scotticoke. So it is a special meeting, and it's at the library. Thank you, Olga. And so, you know, we'll try and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. Obviously, there's a little bit of a time limit to afford that opportunity, but it's really, we don't have all the answers. We spoke about this today. We don't have all the answers. We will not have all the answers for quite some time. But the only way that we, I think, can be even more productive is to be as transparent as possible, and when we do have the answers, release those to the community and bring them along with us. And so that's the goal.
We don't have a choice.
One more for the microphone, do pick up
Sure.
day tomorrow.
6:30 at Scotticoke, please, in the library.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry.
I'm done.
I have a question for Jack and then for Ms. Fallenbach. There's nothing, this entire council has no question of the community pulling together on this incredibly tragic event. And so, you know, this doesn't surprise us that everybody's come together. Balfour, they're the biggest remediation company in the United States. They better be able to pull this off. But it will be a lengthy process. Let's not kid anybody. Those classrooms aren't going to be open in September. Has Balfour done a chem sponge test throughout the whole building or just in that area where the fire was?
They're doing that as they go, and then
Are
part
they
of it's-
mapping the chem sponge?
They're mapping as they go. And part of that will also be take place tomorrow with Fuss and O'Neill. They're the industrial hygienists, and they're the ones that ultimately are responsible for releasing the space before we can re-enter it.
And so people know, chem sponge is a special type of sponge
Yeah.
that when rubbed on a wall will show smoke residue, right? And are they testing the HVA system? It was running at the time of the fire?
It was running at the time of the fire. It's been off since, and I'm not releasing it until we check it, and that's what we're doing. And that's why I'm doing clearance sampling over the next few days. And before we turn it on, we're going to remove the existing filters and replace them with the carbon filter. It's going to be a married filter, a pleated filter with a carbon filter before we turn them back on. But there'll be sampling prior to us turning them on.
I was gonna say, is Balfour testing this, running tests in the system to see if there's smoke up in the HVA system?
We will be doing that before we turn them on.
All right, moisture mapping, did I hear
They're
you?
doing
gonna- we're gonna have that in the next couple days?
Yeah, we have the preliminary one now. We looked it over today, and that's how we started our plan, and that's why I went back to Will Scott and asked him for more classes.
Fuss and O'Neill's doing air quality, are they also gonna be doing mold testing?
Yes,
Is there any indication that presents itself pretty quickly in this
Yes.
weather? I had a question for the mayor next. State of emergency. Have we spoken to the governor's office?
Randy?
No, this is not, this is Municipal emergency.
This is state.
I don't want the
We
governor's
can't even
office.
ask them for.
I don't want the governor's office involved in this.
No? All right. Ms. Fallenbach. It's temporary classrooms. Maybe, I learned the notes, so that might explain a lot, for a while. But, the one thing about students and even our teachers, they adapt, to the environment. The kids might have fun in those temporary classrooms. But they'll survive. We have a lot of space in this town, particularly even over at Sarah Noble, where we have a whole wing that's not used. Any contemplation of using that space, it would move students to another area, but
I'm actually glad that you mentioned that. I do think that all of those options, they have to be on the table. When you start moving students around, you could technically displace 3 different schools by moving students in different areas. So we have to weigh that against what we need space-wise. It is so early in the game, and I appreciate you saying, we're not going to be ready in the fall. We just don't know, and for anyone to go on the record and say, this is when we're going to do this is when we're going to have this is the space we're going to need, I think is premature at this point. Our goal, like I said, is to let the community know that we're working around the clock, that we're accepting everybody's ideas. Once we get those assessments back, that tells us our time frame, where we're going to go. But the short answer to your question is, we have to look at every option. What open space we have, transportation coordination, portable classrooms, all of the above. Curriculum, programs, this is a heavy, heavy lift.
There's no question. I have full faith in the Board of Ed and the administration to look at every option. That's why you folks are there.
Yep.
You know it well, so is the administration. And we'll do everything we can. I know we will in this community to get, everybody will be in school in September. And it's interesting, I got caught by News 12 in the hallway, and they asked what my thought was on this, and I have full faith in this entire community that our students will be in school on time, somewhere. They will be learning. They'll be here. Nobody's hopefully going to be sitting home, knock on wood, aside from the COVID thing. And so we will get it done. And it's interesting, it came up, is what about the recent resignation by the superintendent? And here's my comment to the news so everybody knows, is that we have a system in place that allows for continuity of administration. The assistant superintendent, Board of Ed, and all the people that work in our school system. So even with the fire and such a hiccup as that, it's not stopping this process. It's going to keep going, and the superintendent's still going to be here for a little while at the very least. And if not, this will still get done at the pace and to the safety and well-being of our students, teachers, and staff. And that's me speaking perhaps as a former BOE. But thank you, because you guys are working hard, and it's a little easier for us over here. So I like it here.
Okay, just one thing. Just to also permanent move us Belleville, because we're 25 students every day, we're the weekends too. So
The KERMA has we have to go through the process of getting their approved, because they're the insurance, but they've approved. So right now, Belfour is working 7 days a week.
Which is good. I suspect Belfour is also working on an estimate of the entire project. 'Cause
Yes,
they
they
have to
are.
get it to the carrier, and I suspect it's an Xactimate type of system that they're using. And it will be shocking to see what it's going to cost to repair this. But it's nice to know that the insurance company is stepping up, because that often can be a burden.
So far, they have not rejected anything we put to them. I've spoken with them about even the temporary air conditioning we put up in Northville, small potatoes, but I mean, they approved that right away, told us they would cover that. We actually had evacuated the air conditioning system at Scaticoke as part of another project, and I had to authorize getting that recharged over the weekend. They've approved the recharging of that. They're approving the rental of the classrooms if we get to that point.
Okay, thank you for all your effort. All of it. BOE, Jack, and the building committee.
Chris?
Yeah, a few questions. You mentioned they tested the structural steel and found it okay.
Yeah.
Is that a metallurgical test? What are they?
No, it was
what
a
are they-
structural engineer went up and did a physical examination of it. In the area of the fire, there was fireproofing on there. It's not asbestos anymore. It's a fibrous material, and some of it had come off obviously during the fire.
Right.
He went up and to check the steel to see if there was any deformation or anything like that. He came back, said that part of the building is fine. There was deformation in the actual steel decking and also some support pieces. They'll be removed and placed back in place.
Okay.
Michael Horton Associates, brought in by Silva Petroselli.
Okay. HVAC system. Dr. Levin's COVID report to us this month talked about upgrading HVAC systems in town buildings, schools. Is there an opportunity here? He was talking HEPA filters and things like that. While we're doing all this, we might want to look to see if there's an opportunity to do an upgrade. It might be cheaper to do it now than later. The other thing I would, and I know you guys are going to do this, but I would stress that whatever we do, changing the campus or moving kids around, that we heavily involve the police department to make sure that there's no soft targets here, that we have whatever we need to keep kids safe.
Chief's already been made aware.
Yeah, good. And then lastly, I know you guys are going to do everything you can. My priority is to get some normalcy, as much normalcy to those kids as possible. You know, those juniors at high school, I don't think know what a normal high school year is. They don't have a normal experience.
I think that's what you're hearing, at least what I'm hearing from the community, is coming off of COVID and having all of that,
Yep.
that the parents in the community are going to be grateful for what opportunities we can to make sure that these kids are out there socially and in school and have that, instruction piece where they can be
Yep.
with their friends.
And try not to lose their extracurriculars.
That's another component.
Yep.
We've had, just started to break it down, and there's been the work by Jack and Tim and everybody on the facility side and our side is one component, but there's a whole other piece of this with instruction, curriculum, transportation, extracurricular activities. It
Yeah.
just goes on and on and on. So I hear you, because we're hearing it as board members everywhere we go. Please do whatever you can to make sure that our kids coming out of COVID have some normalcy.
Yep.
We hear you.
And for once, within reason, you won't hear a lot of complaints about me about money. That's
on the record, right?
Yeah, I guess it is. But and just lastly, thank you to everybody involved. I know the work has been tremendous and stressful, and Jack, you're just such a positive guy. I'm glad that you're in there leading it. And as Mr. Clark mentioned, the first responders just did an incredible job. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Hillary?
Are we going to talk further, or has a decision been made to keep this company going, or are they being released and
I think
we're
they're
finding a new
still-
company?
I think they're still,
That's undecided?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I also just cannot believe, your stories were just, hearing the firemen up there and almost sliding down and just everybody jumping in and putting that thing out, and you could see the smoke from so far away. I too just thank everybody for that night and for the constant work that you guys have been doing. I was at the meeting the other night of the committee, and I just, I think you guys are all obviously qualified and competent, and the meeting was, gave so much information and insight into all the work you guys have done. I just, it's a pity that we're here, because it's been 4 years, a big project, and, this, trying to save money, the penny saved, now, and 4 years ago when we had the plan to do the roof, and then it just delayed and delayed. So it's a pity that we're here, but I too could not echo more that I'm just, everybody has to pitch in and get these kids back to normalcy, as you said, Chris. I just wonder, after hearing the meeting, one of the things that stood out for me was, as a committee, all very competent, was there a project manager? Because I feel like maybe that's, and going forward now, is there one decision maker that, You know, is it you because we're in a state of emergency that all the decisions are, you know, boom, boom, they're gonna be yours? I think that maybe was, you know, it was a lot of people making decisions on that committee, but then that's maybe how the ball, there's no fault, there's no pointing fingers. It's just in looking how this should never happen again, we can analyze what happened.
So Tim, could you?
Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to answer that.
Yeah.
Because we've analyzed that ourselves. It's the first question that we asked each other. And let me explain to you how that process works. So it went out to bid, Dean Petroselli put together documents, field meetings, everything. Came back, all the bidders submitted, I forgot there was 5 or 6 bids that came in, and they made a recommendation to the committee of the qualified bidder. Based on the architect's recommendation and the completeness of their bid, we, the group, the committee had approved them. Now that was under the condition that Dean is retained as the architect every single Thursday on site. Rarely do you have an architect for a roof replacement that he will be there every single Thursday. The other thing we had was a manufacturer representative that is on site every day, all the time. Also, they had to give daily reports every single day to the mayor, superintendent, head of the building committee, and the school, which area they're going to work at. You have a gentleman from the manufacturer that's there taking pictures all day long, documenting it, so you guys have a roof that's 100% warranted. Then you have an architect every Thursday catching up on it. So to have an owner's rep in that condition, it really certainly wouldn't be needed as you approached it. Now, when you have the incident that happened, the fire marshal's still investigating. When he comes out with his findings, it'll be clear of what the issue was and how it happened. Going forward, I wouldn't even entertain rebuilding the school from the inside out without a representative. That's a much more, it's multiple subcontractors, it's multiple vendors, it's multiple code. There's so much that goes with that. This project here went off fine. They followed the means and methods, they followed the documents, didn't have a problem. And again, the workmanship that has been done there has not been scrutinized at all. So we're getting reports from the architect, we're getting these daily reports, we're getting everything saying this is acceptable, this is acceptable. So acceptable to where 2 things that were done were unacceptable. So that's really what it comes down to, is 2 specific incidents. Other than that, you had, you know, it's 400,000 square feet of roof. I don't know how, roughly, but it is a massive undertaking, and to have 0 issues, short of ones that are just tough to understand. So I hope that answers your question with the oversight that you would have in a building like this. But we were excited as a building committee that we would have somebody daily on site from the manufacturer just sitting there watching these guys, making sure everything was put in place. That's rarely you have that. So, and the cost of that was absorbed by manufacturer or whatever, Garland, that's part of their thing. And Dean, the architect, had orchestrated that to have that oversight, because he said, my office just can't be up there watching. I can do drone footage, I can go up on lifts. I need somebody really to check all the boxes as this is going in. So that was the oversight that was understood by the committee, and we were comfortable going into that project.
Yeah, we also had,
Jack?
yeah, we also had Matt Cunningham and myself were there every Thursday. Yeah, we were both there every Thursday. And we met with them to talk about what the plans were. We required them to communicate to Matt and to the superintendent, because after the first, unfortunate first fire, there was a process, and the school was adamant that they wouldn't do any work above classrooms because of the first fire. And there was a requirement for them to write reports and to schedule work with Matt and with the principal and with the school to make sure that this, you know, didn't happen again.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of eyes looking at this, and well, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Sal?
I just want to commend Mayor Bass for pulling this emergency order thing, because this way we're gonna cut the bureaucracy. Talking in hours and hours and hours is gonna be streamlined work with the people competent as they see. So I feel very confident. Cheers.
Any other questions? For Jack? Tim? All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Item 9.
Thank you to our Board of Ed members that are here, former Board of Ed members. Okay.
Item 9.
Okay.
Social services, I'd like to move that we accept the job classification for the social worker / crisis navigator.
Second.
Okay, and if we could have Ivana come up. And as we talked last week about, or our last town council meeting, about having Officer Toro as part of our response team when it comes to homelessness, drug addiction, families in crisis. This is another component that we're going to have, working together with our other nonprofit partners, is the actual social worker / crisis navigator. So Ivana, if you could talk a little bit about that position.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mayor. So basically, when we heard that Justin Colmer was resigning from his position, we went over to the mayor and basically offered to be part of a new solution to keep things going and hopefully not have a gap in services, knowing very well that the work that Mr. Colmer did was astounding for this community, and hoping to continue and be a partner in that. Knowing that the police were definitely going to pick up and do what they need to do, we wanted to be able to offer what we can do. In addition, knowing that folks in crisis, folks that are high risk, I don't think we're seeing all the aspects of what that can mean, considering the economic situation that we're all in right now. And most of the folks that we work with who are already marginal in terms of their financial situations being affected. So turning to Mayor Bass, I have a wonderful social worker on staff, Lauren Hare, who's right here. And she's been our full-time social worker since May of 2021. And her position, which has been the position of the full-time social worker for over 15 years, has been a dual role, has been a full-time social worker / volunteer coordinator. And involved in that volunteer coordination is the coordination of the food bank operation, which went beyond the coordination of just the volunteers to the management, the day-to-day operations of that and the oversight of that. So we proposed to the mayor, and he graciously listened, and then also offered some wonderful ideas to figure out a way to separate those two positions. In addition to that, to go beyond the food bank and make it a program coordinator is because we've always been a small staff of a director who's a social worker, a full-time social worker with a combo job, and a 3/4 social worker who's a diverse coordinator. That is a fairly new position that the mayor helped us enhance. Before that, it was a 21-hour job prior to COVID, or actually in the middle of COVID. And then we have an office coordinator. And we do a multitude of programs in the department, and we're all chipping in to take the lead on those programs, and that's how we got the work done. In light of the new situation, in light of everything that was going on in the community, and what we're probably facing, we have proposed to change the full-time social worker's position, to evolve it to the social worker and crisis navigator. This person will be taking on the role of a service manager or caseworker manager of our most vulnerable and high-risk clients, if you will, or people that are coming to our office. Those that need to have the time and our commitment to follow up with what we're helping them with, not just sort of seeing them and assessing the need and referring them out, but knowing that they're up against challenges, knowing that when we're trying to move forward in our lives, we're trying to handle our daily operations, but we're faced with a challenge, faced with a crisis, whether it to be an intimate partner violence, whether it be the risk of homelessness or just emerging from it, whether it be a severe mental or medical situation in the home, whether it be yourself or a family member, a child or a spouse, that there's other things that are going to preoccupy your mind. And having a partner that's going to be able to follow through with that, being able to help you navigate those steps, continue your your work, whether it be with another agency like the Center for Empowerment and Education, whether it be with a counselor, whether it be with just navigating the school system because it's a child that has extra needs. But at the same time, having to find a new job, re-engage yourself in taking the lead in the financial situation of maintaining your household, something that maybe a partner was doing, and now that partner has gone. Maybe that was the abuse or the, against the person left, is that they were not in charge of anything. And now there's abandonment. And so now they're in charge of everything. So there's skills that need to be built, skills that need to be reevaluated. And so our social workers are in the position to be able to do that. And Lauren has graciously stepped up to do that. She has extremely proud of the work that she's done since May, trying to toggle both of those positions in terms of her volunteer position and maintaining the primary program, which is the food bank, in that. And but looking forward to the separation of that, and then us moving forward in terms of us being able to address the needs of our community and continue to move on with our mission, which is to enhance the well-being of those in financial crisis.
Thank you, Ivana, and kind of a little bit of background as well. When we were looking at how we really retool since Justin had left, pretty much 40 to 45% of the time Lauren had was to the food bank. So now with the position of having the volunteer program coordinator, that frees up a lot of capacity for really the social worker to do the work that we're asking her to do.
That's absolutely correct.
And then also it gives Officer Toro the abilities, things that he may have to move either with a nonprofit or with Lauren, and Lauren can be the follow-up to that. As we all know, the success that we've had so far in the town is being able to get immediate services and then follow up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to thank you for stepping forward for that, and Ivana, thank you.
Yeah. We appreciated greatly working with Justin Comer in his position, and we worked closely with him, and we look forward to the continuation of doing that with the police, and an elevated opportunity for responsibility and addressing the needs through Lauren. And in addition to that, because our diverse community advocate is trilingual, that if Lauren does have a situation where language is one of the barriers, we'll be able to task manage that and push that off to Maria. Lauren will then supervise that case, but Maria will handle the day-to-day. So I appreciate the fact that our diverse coordinator will be able to step in and handle that, not just for anybody in our Spanish speaking community, but also our Portuguese community. So we're very fortunate to be able to have that, and we feel that that's an encompassing response.
Any questions for Ivana? Chris?
One, I just appreciate that we've maintained our veterans' preference on these, and I think part of it is you want to repay those that serve, but I think also, in many cases, like Justin's case, his military experience really lent some skills there. The only other thing I just want to understand, and I had several conversations with Justin, and I think one thing that he was really focused on was when he would find somebody in crisis, really digging down to try and get what the root cause was, and address that. So he wasn't just, well, let's get him a bed for the night or get him a hamburger. He's like, what's going on? And I'm sure you're going to continue that. My question is, and you probably know me a little bit, I'm very data-driven. Will we see data, and maybe it's budget time or something like that, when we do those sorts of presentations of how many people, not only how many people we've served, but how many people have we helped through their crisis, and now they don't need our services anymore? To me, that's the win. Giving someone a meal is great, but getting them so they can be self-sufficient is the real win.
Absolutely. I mean, we are developing a matrix to gauge our involvement with the person. I think that you may see a mixed progression of being their level of dependence on their advocate and their navigator to work with them. And that we do hope is, would diminish over time. It is what we try to do with everyone that we work with. Yes, that's always been a philosophy of ours is we don't just sit here and say, oh, you have a car payment, here you go. Or, we get this question all the time about the food bank and people coming in for a food bank. And it's just like, we invite them in for food, but boy, do we love having a conversation with you. And the reason why is because there's probably something else going on. Right. And there's so many other things that can help you. Some things are temporary. Some things, as long as these programs exist, like an energy assistance program, they can work it into their lifestyle. Because for some people, that complete self-sufficiency, if that coincides with complete self-reliance, I think in the economic stage that we're in, that may take a little bit longer. So yes, we hope to show the progression and the dependency of that, them doing more and us doing less, absolutely. But we may not see a complete withdrawal from our services. But to see somebody once a year for energy assistance and I say, how you doing? And they're like, it's okay. This is just now a piece of my puzzle. That's okay. They are living their life. So that is a good answer. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Any other questions for Rhino in this position? Okay. Okay.
We have a motion and a second.
And a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
9B, I'd like to move that we approve the job classification for the volunteer and program coordinator for social services.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Katie. Vonna, could you talk a little bit about this position?
Sure. I kind of lumped them all together. Yeah. So they do go hand in hand. I will try not to repeat myself, Mike, but they do go hand in hand. So just to continue, the volunteer program coordinator is a full-time position that we're requesting. We work with anywhere between as little as 15 to as many as 25 or 30 volunteers. It's a constant operation. You're looking for volunteers, you're interviewing volunteers, you're vetting them, you're training them, you're supervising, you're evaluating them. And it's a constant, because we see them mostly on a weekly basis with food bank, there's a constant interaction there. So that piece in itself is a big proponent of this position. In addition, the program coordinator, which is a huge piece, would be in charge of coordinating all the programs that social services is involved in. The food bank being the biggest one, which is a Monday through Friday job. Right now, there's at least a quarter to a third, except for Thursdays, that would be pretty much 95 to 98% of your time, is involved with the food bank. In addition to that, we run Santa Fun program, we run additional toy programs, traditionally sibling shopping. We run a Walk a Mile for a Meal, which is an annual food drive, right now coordinated by the Diverse Community Coordinator, because that's the one available to help. We also involved with Stamp Out Hunger with the post office. We help campers go to camp, and that's an extensive process that the office coordinator has been taking the lead on. We are involved in many different things, of course, back to school. I almost forgot about that. And Thanksgiving Day, which we also work with United Way. So these programs have a lot of things involved. I actually created a chart of everything that's just programming that the current staff is engaged in, that then I'd be turning to a coordinator and saying, this is you. In addition, they would be there to support the staff, especially the office coordinator in-house, in assisting with whatever data and reporting that needs to happen, and of course working closely with director to make sure that all of that is obtained.
Thank you. And we have our HR director, Greg Bolero here. Greg, if you could come up for a minute, and if the town council does approve this job description, Greg, how does then the process work after that?
What the plan will be, this is going to be a new position, so I'll get this posted. I've got it prepped to go, so I'll probably get it posted tonight before I leave. We'll be accepting applications for a minimum of 2 weeks. We review these applications, we'll review it with the director, we review it with the mayor, we have an interview committee, we'll make that selection, and we do our background check and get them on board.
Any questions for Yvonne or Greg? We
I have a question for Greg.
motion. Sal?
So what does it include in the background check when you do it?
So when we do our background checks, we do criminal background checks, we do pending cases as well as convictions. We check to make sure that they're not on a registered sex offender registry. We also will do social media background checks. We do drug tests as well as physical and any
Drug test, hair or blood sample?
urine.
What's up?
Urine.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry,
Kate?
you done, Sal? What percentage of our employees have to be bondable?
Katie, I'll have to get back to you on that.
No, I'm just curious. I
Off the top
mean,
of my
I
head.
realize here why, I've just wondered, it used to be a very rare thing. Now
It is.
I
I
see
wonder-
it's more popular than before.
I know in the finance office they need to be bondable. This
That's
position
good.
they'll need to be bondable, but I don't believe there's anybody else off the top of my head. I'd have to
Well,
research it and get back to
Social
you.
services, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Board of Ed, they,
I don't handle Board of Ed. I wouldn't
Nobody
be able
in
to speak
office
to that. So,
Oh.
but definitely finance. I
curious.
believe the tax assessor. But let me
Oh,
get
that's a
back
good
to you on
idea,
that.
too,
Yeah,
somebody there.
let me get back to you on it. I want to do a little research. So
oh, no rush. Thank you.
Any others, Joe? No. Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vaughn. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Oh, whatever.
Item number 10, I'd like to move that we approve the creation of the Fair Rent Commission per the state Connecticut statute. I don't know the number. You know that one off?
7-148B and sequential.
Thank you.
And this was created by...
I'm sorry, is there a second?
A second.
So this is a new law for towns greater than 25,000 in population, which New Milford is. The General Assembly has asked for the creation of a fair rent commission. PA 22-38 requires municipalities with a population of 25,000 or more to adopt an ordinance creating a fair rent commission to receive and investigate rent complaints, issue subpoenas, hold hearings, and order property owners to reduce rents for specific reasons. The ordinance must be adopted by a municipality's legislative body by July 1st, 2023. It also requires the chief executive's officers of these municipalities within 30 days after an ordinance is adopted to notify the Department of Housing Commissioner, give her a copy of the ordinance. Under the Act, municipalities' populations are determined by the U.S. Census Bureau's most recent decennial census, which is IE 2020. So with that being said, I'd like to get an affirmation from the council to begin the process of setting up the Fair Rent Commission.
So we have actually no choice in doing this?
Randy?
No choice. It used to be, you may have a commission unless you had 5,000 rental units within the town. Now it goes by population. So it's a mandatory creation.
What's the legislative history of giving them such enormous
1971,
power?
7-148B came into being, and that stated that there was a voluntary rent commission to follow the example of New York rent control. But it was voluntary. There are 13 criteria that the Fair Rent Commission would take into consideration in order to determine whether rents were fair. That, again, was mostly voluntary. Then it became mandatory but statute changed in 1983. It became mandatory if towns that had 5,000 rental units did not have a public hearing, and their legislative body could decide whether to have a fair rent commission. If they didn't do that, then you had to have one. That became mandatory. So that's the history of how it incrementally became mandatory. Now, because someone in Hartford decided that there's a rental crisis in many towns that are not cities, because cities have these commissions, they decided that it's done by population, 25,000. It's mandatory. I believe the 13 criteria are still in place, but they're being discussed as well.
What are the damages they can assess?
Well, back in the day, it was $100, $25 for every $100 that you were found to be over a fair rent. And then the commission could also adjust your rent downward. who knows what's gonna be going forward.
So the fair rent is based on what? I mean, it's.
There's 13 criteria, so I'm not gonna go through them now. But one of the criteria, of course, is debt and taxes. The problem is Governor Malloy did not like this, of all people, did not like this, because he said it was one of the reasons he believed that Stamford had a deterioration of its rental housing because of lack of investment.
Probably true.
So when do we have to approve this by?
July
July
2023.
1st, 2023.
So we have a year.
Well, you have to get a commission in place.
Right.
You have to have a
it has
commission
to
in
be-
place by next July.
That's
No,
what-
you have to have
no,
a commission in
no.
place so it's deployed and it's operational by next July.
And just to give the other side of the story, this past year, the eviction rates have like tripled. So from about, what, 5%
Because they were put on
hold
to,
for 2 years.
from
At least
5%. So no-cause evictions really rose to about 35%. So this is really also, tenants' rights. I mean, I'm giving you the other side. Tenants feel very intimidated by
But you also had
landlords.
two-
That's the other side, is really giving tenants advocacy and a safe platform to contend their rent, their raised rents.
They don't have that safe platform in the court of law?
No, Tom, what this is it's statutorily, it's a statutory mandate. And what happens is that, what Hillary's right, probably won't be on triple, by the way, because there was all this pent-up problems with the landlords who couldn't pay their carrying charges. And so what happened is that as I read the legislative history when I was preparing for this, it really created almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that these poor people were being evicted because their rents went up 300, 400, 500% because of the makeup. So this was, as I read this is in response to that.
It was so the rents went up 300 or 400% was to make up for lost rent.
That's what happened. There was no check or balance to say, let's do this. We understand the landlord's position, but let's do it incrementally.
But they should have incrementally.
So the market couldn't control that, so the legislature did. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It's very slippery slope, obviously, but it's true.
From the other side, landlords couldn't evict for a certain period of time. That's why evictions went up so much. Just the threat of eviction will actually help someone go see Ivana, try and get the rent paid, try to help it out. But these renters knew they had no threat of being evicted, so landlords were left holding the bag. And now these landlords are getting their income going up 2-3 points. I mean, their mortgage rate's going up 2 or 3 points, so their costs are going up. Not all landlords are corporations. A lot of them are individuals that own a piece of property that they're just creating wealth with, and it makes it difficult when the government is basically telling you what you can and can't do with your private property.
So one question. If we don't approve this as a council, what then?
Well, if you don't approve it, you really want the state involved? No, you don't.
What would happen?
You would probably get issued an order to create this, and if we don't create it, then the state will come in.
Yeah,
They'll come in and create it?
Oh, they'll be the rent commission.
Okay,
They'll
all right.
have I mean, that's how I read this, the legislative intent, the legislative background.
It's just this is
They could
yet
also-
another
Chris, they
example.
also could withhold funding.
Right.
Okay. Just another example that the state government caused the problem by doing the shutdown and all these executive orders, and now, which hopefully at some point this goes away and the problem goes away, but now we're gonna have a permanent solution imposed upon us.
But I'm just delivering.
No, I know,
Randy?
We're not shooting the messenger.
Maybe
The other side of the argument.
you can appreciate, I have no problem with dealing with abuses of position, but perhaps only you can appreciate what I do, the power behind a subpoena. And the ability to abuse that, because we have that right as attorneys to issue subpoenas. And we're bound by ethics, commissions. And
The commission's not bound by ethics, you're right.
And
However,
so, have you ever, has it been ever reported that these commissions abuse this? It is an enormous power.
It's an absurdly broad power, frankly. In Connecticut, you don't need a judge to issue a subpoena. I can issue a subpoena.
So can I, where I'm in New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, I could issue one anywhere. in those states. But we're bound by ethics rules to
Yeah.
not abuse our authority.
Yeah, that's true. That's
But
true.
they're not.
Well, no, they're not lawyers that issue, they don't have to be a lawyer to issue a subpoena on that. However, I believe there's another statute, I don't want to get into the history of Western legal thought here, but there's another statute that says that only a commissioner of the Superior Court or a judge or a clerk of the court can issue a subpoena. It's in conflict with this. It's also in conflict with the Police Accountability Act. So I don't know what's going to survive on that particular issue, because the subpoena power is so powerful and so broad and so disruptive to somebody's life.
Yeah, yep.
That's right.
So the fact,
But so many businesses, I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen what
but
they,
in fairness, I'm just saying there's two sides here. In fairness, there were multiple evictions that occurred one after the other. Hartford had to add a judge, because these landlords had a lot of pent up demand for revenue.
so it's a balancing act. We just don't know where it's gonna be.
Yeah, it is a balancing act, you're right.
Katie?
But it's the way it is.
I just want to say that, yes, it is definitely broad power. However, I think that to say that it would not be needed at some time is not a valid statement. There will always be people who, as a landlord, they might say, well, they're taking advantage. But there also always have been and will be landlords who are not ethical.
Absolutely.
And if you want to talk about the state coming in and, I'm not 100% what I'm saying, just take this as I say it. I don't want the state to come in and tell us what to do, which is why we are going to vote on this tonight. However, you have to protect both sides. And the side that is needing, I think, the bigger chunk of protection are the people who are in rental situations that can be changed. It's happened here in this town, okay, with some people, and Ivana knows what I'm talking about, that they went into a place with a nice affordable rent, and the next thing you know, a year goes by and bam, the rent goes up. And you know what? They tell you on December 1st, and you gotta decide by the 15th. So where do you go here? It means you go nowhere. So you don't have any place to go. So the landlords and things like that are watched by fair rent commissions. It's not always perfect, but it's not, this goes on in every city and cities I've lived in, and they don't make everybody happy, but just think about what it'd be like if we didn't have it.
But city solutions generally don't work for.
But we
towns
have a
like
lot
us,
of, we
and
are looking at a lack of housing, a lack of affordable
Then let us come up with
rentals.
our own solution,
But-
not one push
Well,
us from
this
our-
is why we're gonna create this commission, Chris, and not have somebody come and
Not
tell
have
us.
somebody
I don't
else do
want
it.
that. At least we have an opportunity to look at it that way.
One of the senators, just for your edification, one of the senators stated that there was one of the abuses that was stated during the public hearings was that a person rented 2 apartments, one for himself, one for his daughter and her family. He did new trim, he did painting, he did a magnificent job, actually brought the wiring up to snuff, had a 4-year, 3-year lease. When it renewed, the rent tripled because of the improvements that he paid for.
That he put in.
The reason he justified that was because his taxes were gonna go up. Taxes didn't get touched. But the fact is, so there's both sides, abuses on both sides. And the market's not taking care of it. That's what the senators came, and there's a lot of Republican senators who thought that too, that the market wasn't adequate to take care of it. All I'm telling you is we gotta do it, and
Let's do it our way
I'll be
instead of the
happy to
state's
help
way.
out.
Is there a way we can get those 13 criteria? I haven't.
Well,
seen it yet.
I want to see whether or not that's going to be changed, because the 13 criteria was with the 94, I think, revision. So I want to change. One of them is huge, however, is debt. So
Is there
no
a appeal
landlord's
from that?
expected to be.
Is there an appeal from that? Let's say.
Yeah, there is an appeal.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not one way.
There's appeal both ways.
Gotcha. Mike?
Thank you. And Katie, you said you need to protect both sides. Every law and statute in the state of Connecticut is geared towards protecting the tenant, not protecting the landlord. And I've seen it. I've had a tenant, I only own 2 units, I've sold 1. I had a tenant who wouldn't pay for a long period of time, and they pay you a little bit, which pushes them out a little bit more, and then you go to court, I show up at court, they don't show up, they finally got out of the unit. They know the system. A lot of tenants know the system. So I'm not saying there aren't tenants out there that get screwed, but trust me, a lot of landlords get screwed because a lot of these tenants
know the system, and know how to manipulate it and do it very well. So does this thing we're setting up ever protect the landlord? That's the question. It's only there to protect the tenant. Sometimes landlords get screwed. In the state of Connecticut, it takes a long time to get someone out of your unit that's not paying rent.
Right,
A really long time.
But
And
isn't
that's-
the term fair rent, don't you feel that that would work both ways? I mean, I don't think we should assume
I don't
it's
think
only
you can.
fair
I
to
don't
the
think this will
renter.
have the statutory to evict a tenant because they're not paying. They don't have that ability. I mean,
Yeah,
And they don't have it the other way either.
No, it's under Title 47A23. That's how you get the tenant out by way of an eviction. For not
Yeah,
paying
and
rent.
Randy, how long does an eviction take?
It depends on what judge you get.
Yeah, and how long can it take?
It take months.
Yeah, and that means you're not getting any income and you're still paying your mortgage. I'm just saying, it's everything's
Well,
set
you
up in
can,
the state.
there's a provision now that you, I'm sorry. There's a provision now that you can file a motion in court to get use and occupancy for the time that they won't get out. So, and if they don't pay the use and occupancy, it's a summary removal.
And what does that mean?
That means that you don't have to wait till the end of the process. You can have them evicted for violation of the order to pay you reasonable, not your rent, reasonable use and occupancy for the period of the pending eviction. So that's to give the landlord some relief.
I'm done. So I want to leave the state.
Just got a question.
Anybody? Sal?
So for that, a quick one. Does any like a criminal record gets into that? Let's say I have a child molester, doesn't pay rent, and he says, "Okay, I don't have a job, I don't have a money, I'm a child molester. What are you gonna do?"
Well,
Yeah, evict.
you evict them, but you,
But
I'm not saying I am.
this
you didn't
thing
pay the
cannot
rent.
manage.
They don't get the protection of the Fair Rent Commission if they're not paying the rent.
Right.
They have to make a complaint to the commission and say, this rent went from I guess the average is $1,800 a month now for a two-bedroom, I guess.
At least.
Went from $1,800 to $2,400 this year. I can't afford it. I want to come to there, but you have to continue to pay your rent at
Well,
$1,800. But if you just don't pay your rent, you don't get the protection of that.
Right, so this isn't to protect people who are beating
No,
landlords.
as I just said, section 47A-23 and sequential is another statutory schematic in order to get somebody evicted who's not paying, who just refused to pay rent.
But they're not going to be protected within this.
No, you
This
can't
is
make it
only,
up.
as you said, you stated before, it goes from something that was reasonable to something that was unreasonable
Yeah.
without.
Now, that's how I read it. Again, it hasn't been litigated yet. It's a brand new statute. Brand new.
All right.
So we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
And one abstention.
Let's do it through the state.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Well moved.
In a deeper voice.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.